It appears we have a forum, so the meeting of the Waterfront Advisory Committee will come to order. Thank
Here, I make a motion that we approve the meeting agenda.
Any discussion?
Second.
The minutes from our January 12th meeting have been distributed, and are there any comments, corrections? So is there a motion to approve the minutes of the January 12th?
Move. Second.
Favor? The first item for discussion is report on the results of the Waterfront Park Public Opinion Survey. I am sure that all of you in this room understand how Survey Monkey works. I don't, however, so I asked the manager, I'm not the person present here, actually saw this too.
Oh, Brandon, would you like to join us?
But it would be helpful, since in early November, this committee approved a 4-page survey. Which is colliding with the minor edits. The survey was then put online. And then most recently, we received 280 pages of output. So how did we get from Mr. Scolani left here?
So essentially what I do is I took each question and you import it into SurveyMonkey. SurveyMonkey has a form of AI that generates each question for you based on the question that is input. And so I went through each question and made sure that it was correctly input. So if it's a multiple choice question, we have the correct multiple choice. If it's a rate your options, make sure you have the right ones. It's pretty intuitive, so it got most of it correct. I double checked every other question to make sure that the inputs were correct. And then once you verify that the questions are correct, they're aligned correctly, they're the correct multiple choice, or choose between 1 and 7, or there's options for boxes for people to put their own choices in there, then it is completed and it is then turned into a link that you can send out to everybody. So we took that link and we created a QR code so that people could scan with their phone. It immediately pulled up the link, and then you can fill out the survey right there on your phone or on the computer, and we sent it out multiple times throughout the city, garnering 1,700 responses. And then once it was completed, you essentially close the survey, and then it analyzes all the responses for you. So it puts together a very detailed, as Councilman Scolani shared with you, very detailed breakdown of each question, each answer, and how respondents answered. And then it also gives you, percentages and numbers of responses.
So when you get the output, I assume the output includes bar graphs and so forth.
Yes, sir.
You had ordered when you started the process.
It completes the bar graphs and all of that information on the end once we close the survey, and it analyzes the results. Yes, you can create a bar graph, you can create a pie graph.
All the individual responses, the narrative inputs. SurveyMonkey reads that and then transcribes that one.
Yes, And so I can pull up each question and see if there was an option for an other where there was a box for them to put whatever they would like to answer. I could see every single response for each question, but it does determine how people felt. So, for example, this one shows a positive of 4%, neutral of 82%, negative of 12%. So it analyzes what their responses are, like this response, no more cruises, this is why we have to fix everything down there, is obviously a negative response. And it reads that as a negative. So it groups each by 3 different areas. So it's positive, neutral, and negative.
That's for every question?
That's for every question that has a box for them to have a narrative to respond.
Or, yeah, other open-ended, or
Yes.
if it was multiple choice with other at the bottom.
Yes.
Now, I asked my favorite AI partner, his name is Claude. Because I was trying to get prepared for this meeting. I asked him a question: does SurveyMonkey decide on its own methodology it will use to score responses? And Claude says, no, SurveyMonkey doesn't automatically decide on scoring methodology for you. Here's how it actually works. And basically, you control the scoring, you design survey questions and choose question types, et cetera, et cetera. You decide how to interpret and analyze results. Is that consistent?
Yes.
So when you got the output of the survey, is that what we have received, or did it go back to our people?
No, I gave Councilman Scaletti the direct access to the final, all of the final answers. So he was able to directly access all of the data that SurveyMonkey collected from every question.
So, do you have any further input into the process after you received?
No, so basically I just went through and read the responses, analyzed it with the option that's in SurveyMonkey, and then generated that report that I sent you guys. And the one that I sent has every question, every response. It had the summary of, the different sentiments, whether positive or negative, and then some of the high notes. So which in this case, most of the respondents appreciated, the relaxing views, and they didn't appreciate they wanted better lighting, better security, better bathrooms. And so all of those things you can pick out from the responses. And when you analyze it with the AI feature in SurveyMonkey, it generates that. And so you guys have that in the email, and that'll also be attached to the minutes of this meeting, so that it's public record that go back and look at, every comment that was made. Really not much different than even the study from 2002, right? They would hold meetings, they would have a memorandum, they would maybe have 100 people present, they would ask some questions and they would generate responses, they would tally those responses, and it's in the Sasaki report. So on this, it's just a grander scale, but it's still the same concept. You can read each individual response.
This memo that we got from is this real work, or is it?
This was from Scott when I came in. He had a copy of this, which is essentially it's same thing, right? I mean, it's
Yeah, I just ran it through AI and asked AI to just provide an executive summary and survey results. What's that?
It's AI.
Yep.
This is AI summary
Of the survey results,
of the entire.
the entire survey.
So, Josh, after you received the link, if you didn't go back and massage any of the answers or get different methodologies and put in.
besides like change the answers.
No, not yet. But you satisfied with the output that Ashley got. And so what we've got here is what you.
Right, exactly. Well, I received access to get what you have, but what you have is what you get from the results of the survey.
I'm not sure what, I got one other question. If, when we're done with this, process of evaluating, if we want to have a summary in addition to this narrative summary, we wanted a sort of short form bar graph report. That's something that SurveyMonkey could produce.
On most of the questions, yes, I can do one for each. It would have to be each separate question, but yes, that was something I could put together.
Didn't you guys have that in what I sent you, right? Because it had, you could put each question from where applicable, you would have a bar graph.
That's right. What I'm wondering is, but I don't think we want to turn loose 280, 90 pages, survey to public. Maybe we do.
I would say that they should have access to that. I mean, because it show, a lot of those pages are the individual comments. If you were to take those out of it, it would be a lot less. But I would think that people may want to read the individual
I think
comments.
they may, but I think they'd appreciate something a little more concise, and maybe the comments could be in a separate binder.
So graphics for each one that break down. I see what you're
One
saying.
sort of summary report for all the full detail.
Yeah, not everyone's gonna wanna read War and Peace, I mean, they're gonna want a summary sheet essentially.
All right, well, that's,
Mr. Chair, have you reviewed the document that Councilman Scalati sent with the survey results?
yes,
Okay, I mean, this seems to capture what you're asking for the most part. Except it has all the comments with it, which makes it.
yeah, I'm suggesting carving out the comments so that what you've got is a manageable.
Okay.
Product.
Like 1 page per response with bar graphs to indicate responses.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's the thing, I wouldn't, I guess, because if you did that, you would want, if you're gonna include the individual comments, which I think you should, you would want it to be clear which question that ties back to. So you wouldn't want to separate it so far. Now, the way that it's in there, and the way that I sent it to you guys, it's the summary of each individual question with the bar graph and the responses and if anybody skipped it. And then below that, it's if they had the option to answer or make a comment, it's the list of those comments. And so I understand the idea of separating it to the point that it's something that's manageable and easy. But I think that if they just were interested in the summary, they can look at those summaries and skip past the comments, but you really wouldn't want it like all the summaries up front and then all of the comments in the back, because it may be challenging to tie that back to the individual question that they were
I
responding to.
understand, but to get to all the summaries, you've got to scroll down through many, many pages. What if, here's the suggestion, what if we had a summary of just the bar graphs? And then a separate thing, which is what we've got right here. So if somebody wanted the whole thing with the individual comments associated with each question, they've got it.
That could, yeah, that could probably work too.
I just want something managed.
Yeah.
If that's what we decide, then that is an option.
Councilman Splay, do you want to work with me on that so that you feel more comfortable?
All right, I'm not quite sure how to proceed at this point. I have distributed memorandum with respect to question number 11, but if we want to start with question 1 and see.
First, I would say, Mr. Chair, that the summary provided by the town manager, city manager, his AI seems predictable of what I would expect it based on that survey answers. And so if you want to summarize that 1 page, I don't know if we have to agree with that because we have to kind of define it about how we interpret results. But I mean, for example, how the park is used, what the community values most, satisfaction, basically, I think what I'm seeing in this is to take this for what it is that the park layout is adequate as it's currently designed, and changes don't necessarily need to be made significantly outside that footprint. But there are some takeaways like, I think the town knows, the city knows, the council knows, bathroom facilities improvement, lighting improvement, and some accessibility improvements. And we've talked about those for years, so I don't think that's a big change. And then under the public sentiment, changing up with a clear resistance to redesigning the park. Now, I hear that too. I hear that on the street, at the street level. So, and I get it. I think people are very satisfied with the current design, so going outside that would be a clear direction. I mean, not to do for this board to recommend the council. In other words, I would be recommending steer the course for the design concept, but make the improvements necessary that fit the budget that we can afford to make when we make the repairs. So I find that that survey is valuable for that reason.
I mean, I think they like the design because that's the only design they know. They won't provide any options. But it seems like there's not anything else but this. So I agree with you there.
I would say we don't want the general public designing the park. And so if they're happy with what we have, it's a lot easier to get us.
I'm not saying it's not design, I'm just saying they like, because that's all they know there, all they can envision there.
Right, so, I think we need to have sort of an orderly approach to this. I don't know any better way to do it than just start with question one and go forward. If people have issues with the response or way.
So that, you want to go through each individual question? Or do you want to talk about any questions of concern that the board may have? I mean, that doesn't matter to me which way we do it, but that's.
Let's go with that. That's what we're trying to get. If no one has a question, there's no need to spend time on that.
I mean, I think some of the key areas that the board talked about that got us to the point where we did a survey was trying to find some key pressure points. And one of them would be the boating part, right? If you go, because that's gonna be an expensive adventure, right? Trying to get the park designed to hold a seawall that can support mooring vessels. So did we get enough information out of the survey to believe that that's a strong direction to take?
All depends on how you read the answer to the survey question. Maybe we just go to that. Skip from one to the other. I circulated a memorandum several days ago, and it's been distributed here, indicating that I believe the methodology used by SurveyMonkey to interpret the results of question number 11 isn't correct, and substantially overstates support percentages for each vessel type. I know you've had a chance to look it over, but let me just approach it from this standpoint. When we designed this question, sitting around this table, it's question number 11. We fiddled with it a little bit because there was some overlap with other questions, so forth. But the basic thrust of it was, and the question is, as put in the survey, should the park design accommodate docking or tie up for any of the following vessel types? Check all you would support. Now, if somebody around this table had said, we need to add something to that. We need to add a proviso that says, if you don't check any one or more of these boxes, your response is going to be considered a skip. It's going to be thrown in the trash can. It won't count. You've got to check a box, at least one, to have your ballot counted. Even if you don't want any of these vessels mooring at Waterfront Park, you got to check a box, or your vote's going to not count. Even if you don't care, or even if you haven't made up your mind and you're not satisfied that you want to check a box, you got to check it, or your vote's not going to be counted. If somebody had made that suggestion at the time we were writing this question, I know I would have questioned their sanity. And I hope other people around the table maybe would question their sanity, certainly question their judgment. Why would you force somebody to check a box that says, I support vessel A, just to get their ballot counted when they don't support vessel A? I don't think we would have put it that way. But what's happened after the fact, after the game is over, SurveyMonkey determined that that's the way it's going to count the ballots. If you didn't check a box, at least one, your ballot is going to be considered as not having been cast. I don't think that's fair. I think it even approaches, first of all, I think it approaches a question of sort of honesty, being honest. These answers. But I think the answer from my standpoint is we put a very direct question out there. It wasn't looking for reasons why people did or did not check a box. We didn't put a box in there for no opinion. So if you had no opinion, you probably wouldn't have checked the box. This question measures only affirmative responses. So I think the answer that I've got is that in determining the support percentage, these various types of vessels, you have to start with the total response number of 1777 and not reduce it by 493 respondents chose not to check a box. I think they would be very surprised to learn that because they hadn't checked a box, their views were not counted.
Mr. Chairman, respectfully, I disagree with that.
I understand that.
Because a non-vote is not a negative vote. And I'll draw a specific parallel. If you go to the voting booth on election day, and you have a slate of candidates, and you don't like any of them, and you don't vote for any of them, doesn't mean you voted against any of them, just means you didn't like any of them, or you had no opinion of them. So you can't say that a non-vote is a negative vote. That goes against all standard polling practices.
So you believe that there is a rule here that if you don't check a box, your vote doesn't count.
Right. And
What if I, in filling out my survey, that I don't want shrimp boats there, I don't want to see any of these boats blocking my view of the river. So I can't check any boxes.
but you can't assume that's what they meant.
I can assume that's what I meant.
I know, but you can't assume that's what they meant. That might be what they meant, or they might meant, I don't really have a preference, I don't care what kind of vote.
That's right. So they wouldn't, go back, look at the question.
So why would you make an assumption there?
The question says, check all vessel types you would support. If you don't know, then you don't check it.
We asked for an affirmative response. I mean, in hindsight, we should have had a box that said no votes.
Yeah.
And that would,
Right.
you know, then I think it would have been clear, but here it's asking for an affirmative response. Do you want this? And there's no place to say, I don't want any of them. So,
Well, this is a very important question because it's gonna be the most expensive part of the renovation. And the intent was to find out or test the public to see if there was a desire to continue doing that. And I don't know that having 1,200, whatever the number was, 1,284 respondents, having their votes counted negates the rest of them not. You know, in other words,
Of course it does,
yeah,
because you're talking about the denominator that's being used to determine the support percentage.
but there's still support. I mean, we could count it as an outlier and not consider it, but that doesn't help us get to the next step. So when engineers come back with 3 proposals and they're asking us, do we want a prominent or do we want a relieving platform or some application that allows this to happen? How do we answer that? What's the public input? I won't count this as a zero, that they don't want votes.
No, it's 30% of the 1,777, 30.56% of the people check shrimp boats.
So there's 30% of that group that says, 1/3 of the respondents would like to see a shrimp boat be able to tie up.
The way I view it.
Well, that's the way I interpret it too. So that's affirmative that it's an important attribute of the waterfront park. To have that ability, whether they do it or not, that count is the ability. So I don't know if this is just treated as outlier and not deal with it or not make it such a big point that this is what we have to go with. And if we agree that the data is worthy of accounting that way, we should consider that.
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
I'm not either.
Okay.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, why is this such a big issue for you?
For me, because I believe the methodology that SurveyMonkey used here is illegitimate.
Okay.
For the reasons I've stated.
I don't know if I would put it back on Survey Monkey. I guess I would put it back on us, and I would agree with Mr. Russell here. You know, hindsight's 20/20, but if we could go back, the better option would be to add in there no vote so that we know. We thought we were covering that with an other option, and I think that by the responses that were generated, you could see that there were a lot of respondents who used the other option to do just that, whether they were saying, I don't support any votes, I support personal crafts, I think anything that would produce business downtown is a good thing. I mean, there was a slew of different responses inside of that other option. And so the original thought was that that would cover it, but you're right, maybe another option would have been better. In this case, you know, looking at all the other questions, with every question, there was skips. And I don't know that you could say the same thing. I know this question number 11 was written a little bit different to where it was check all that you would support. But even if you go with your theory on every skip is no support at all, and there's no realm by which this person skipped it because they just didn't care about it. Maybe they support options, maybe they don't. I think that's probably the reality. Now, how we would tabulate that would be impossible. We would never be able to tell how many of those that skipped it actually skipped it because they don't care or skipped it because they actually don't support anything. But even with all of them being counted as no support, if they didn't answer the question, there's still a pretty strong show of support for the options that we did have up there. So
Couldn't we,
I want to pick at one thing you said. That is, the way this question is put, really doesn't matter what's in the mind of the person who's putting it. Whether he didn't want the votes there, or didn't know, or didn't care, or was asleep. If he didn't check the box, that's what mattered, or did check the box. Check the box, that means I've made an affirmative, I want to see that kind of vessel parked, waterfront park. This question does not try to read his mind. Just whether he affirmatively wants a particular vessel.
Wouldn't it be factually accurate to say of the 1777 folks who completed the survey, 30% wanted cruise ships? You know, 30, so basically saying of everyone who completed this, 30% affirmatively wanted shrimp boats, X%. So it's just factually accurate to say of everyone who completed the survey, this is the percentage of people who affirmatively wanted these things.
I believe that is the only correct way.
It's factually accurate.
It is factually accurate. Anybody else? Well, I guess we need to, at some point, before we finish this discussion, have a vote on this.
What are we voting on?
Well, talk about that. I think the vote would be if someone wanted to make a motion to approve the answers as reported by Survey Monkey without change. Get a vote on that. Or if someone wanted to make a motion that said, we approve survey as we have it, Survey Monkey, with one exception, and that is the answer to question number 11 should be based upon the support, should be support percentages, which are in the right-hand column, which is what I think Dave Russell did. That those numbers reflect literally the number of people who check boxes.
So then what do you do with all of the other responses? Do you get into each of the individual other responses and take those that are supportive of the whether it's the individual vessels or whether it's support for business downtown, do you take those and then add that to the percentage? Or you just leave those alone as other? Because I think if we're gonna start cracking into either these votes don't count or they do count, we're probably gonna have to do something other than how SurveyMonkey tabulated your other responses.
SurveyMonkey tabulated it as 31.46% supporting other.
Right, but it didn't get into the weeds of how or what they said in their other response.
I think that's where the individual narrative responses. There's no way to,
But we can't be as subjective saying we infer that they wanted more cruise ships than shrimp boats based upon their statement that they like business downtown. I think we can't do that.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. So what we're doing, what we're talking about here is taking all of those skips and counting them as no's, right?
they aren't counted as no's.
They're counted as no support for any of the
No,
options.
hold on. No, what we're doing is counting the check boxes as positives.
Over denominator of who did the survey.
Over the 1770.
Yeah.
We're not counting no votes, we're just counting positive.
You're just taking the votes that, hold on, so you're just taking the skips and not counting them at all.
I'm putting the 403 skips, adding them back into 1284, and I'm getting 1777, which would be the denominator divided into the actual number of checks for each vessel.
Right, so you're counting the no responses as a response.
Skips are not being skipped. They're being included in the calculation, right?
It's not a negative, it's just the pool from which people hit an affirmative button.
I'm trying to figure out why this matters. Because what I see is that there was affirmative belief that boats should tie up by almost half of the people responding on an average. So they might have said cruise ships and didn't do shrimp boats, but they didn't know anything about a shrimp boat, but bottom line, it's still a vessel. So each one of those line items is a vessel of some type. So there is support for having, in my mind, a pier head that can allow a type of boat to tie up. We didn't get
Well,
the details.
that's, I think that's several meetings from now.
Okay.
As to what this means in terms of engineering. We're just trying to get the numbers survey crunched out.
And you just put it out there like it's received. I don't know why we even vote on the numbers like they're presented. The survey is a survey. I think we accept the survey and produce the data.
We accept the survey results, but not the methodology. I don't, by which what percentages were determined. I completely, I have no reason to question the number of boxes that were reported as having been checked for each vessel.
I mean, if you think about it, if 10 people filled out this section, you basically have 10 and everyone check cruise boat, it'd be like, wow, 100% of people want cruise ships. And that's kind of taken to an absurd level, but that's kind of what we're talking about here.
All right, is everybody clear enough in the head on this to be ready to cast a vote on a motion? Dave, you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion to accept the survey results as is, except question 11, and as we where we present the percentages as a percentage of the affirmatives of the percentage of the total number of people who filled out the survey, not the total number of people who responded to that question 11.
You have to do better paraphrasing that one.
Okay, make a motion on question 11 to accept the survey results, but with percentages reflecting the number of folks who filled out the survey in total,
The number would be.
17 or 77.
Second. That's the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Do we have any discussion?
Yeah, we'll need to discuss.
Discussion, sorry.
So I'll just say one more time, then I'll be quiet. But this is contrary to standard polling practices. If you go to the voting booth and you have two candidates for sheriff, you don't really care which one of them gets elected and you don't vote. If you're voting by majority, the candidate with the majority of the votes wins. It's not the candidate with the majority of the people who go to the polls. It's the candidate with the majority of people who voted for that office. So that's the standard polling procedure. So this motion flies in the face of that. And so that's why SurveyMonkey reported the data the way that it did. I'll just throw that out there.
And that's why they tabulate it the way that they do, and the only caveat is the way that we framed the question. And we could have done a better job with that. I don't agree there was a flaw with SurveyMonkey, and I guess that's what I was going back to in my original comment, is I don't want to put this back on SurveyMonkey, because really the fault is with us, either in not providing an option for no votes or with framing the question the way that we did. So that's the only challenge for me here is typically I would absolutely not say that we change the results to reflect that, you know, you're adding back in all of those that skipped it, because you're not doing that for any of the other questions. I mean, you had other questions where 700 of the respondents or more did just skip the question entirely, and I think that's a pretty common practice for people when they're taking a survey. And the only thing right now that's creating an issue is the fact that we have language on the back end that says check all that you would support. And so we're saying, well, by not checking anything, you don't support any of it. And while I don't agree that that is what people were thinking when they were doing it necessarily, maybe it was, but maybe it wasn't. And we're never going to get down to the bottom of that. So by going ahead and adding it as if they were skipping it because they didn't support any of those options, it does change the percentages quite a bit. So we can say that it's not counting it as a no, but that is what it's doing, because it's adding the number back in. The issue is it's.
The question becomes, really, if you want votes, check the ones you want. And that's really what the question is. And there's not a way to say I don't want votes.
There was, because there was the other option.
There's not one in there that says I don't care what votes are down there as well, so.
Yeah.
But the other one, I mean, a lot of people are not gonna go one with the brain damage of typing something in. They just want to check boxes.
So Ashley just pulled up some information on the survey, and I guess there were a total of 748 no responses throughout the whole survey. So unless we go back and re-engineer every question for responses that were missed, which I don't recommend. I don't recommend doing it for the question.
This was the only question, right? Other questions clearly lend themselves to skipping.
What makes you think this question doesn't lend itself to skipping?
Because the question is, check the box for the vessels that you want. I don't want any, let's say, so I don't check, I'm not skipping it. I just can't check the box because I don't want any of those vessels there, hypothetically. But I want the fact that I looked at this and considered it and didn't check a box, be considered in determining the outcome.
Again, I go back to, I agree with Councilman Scalani, that was a flaw in design. But we can't correct that flaw by not explaining the thing now.
I'm not, Cora, I think if we went back and redid it, we might do it.
We would absolutely
Right, yeah.
do it a different way.
Yeah.
But I don't know that now the right answer is to change the way so I think that we're spending so much time on this and really, to Mike's point, what does it matter? We have the data that we got from the survey. Sure, we could have definitely done a better job with this particular question, but now we need to just push out what we got. And it's a 1,700 responses, or this question, 1,200 responses. It kind of gives you an idea, a little peek of what people might support or not, but in the grand scheme of things, we didn't get a whole lot of responses. And so I'm not sure what the value in changing the data is as it was presented. I think it's just something that, you know, for us, if we were to do this question again, we would either add another option or we would frame it that way.
I'd say the people who don't want votes are disenfranchised here, though.
I feel like the people who specifically don't want votes probably took the time to respond to the other. They probably are the ones that would make sure they were putting a response in there that says, I do not support any of these options.
Let me make one
You got it right, though.
One point of clarity here on their numbers, the way you wrote this up, support percent with 177 answered. Now, the 1248 that's listed up here is people actually answered that question
There were 1,248 people actually checked the box.
on that particular question. All right, so if that's the case, then Shrimp Boats had 392 votes out of the total population that participated in that category. And Tour Boats got 525. So those are real numbers. If you do the math the other way, the reality is 1,284 people responded to Tour Boats and 525 of them said yes.
Yeah.
Is that how that reads? Because if you take the 1248 and do that percentage of that number, it's gonna get those numbers.
If you use 1248, you get this, no. You use this 1777, you get this.
Well, that's not gonna change the rhythm, it's not gonna change it. Percentage is still there, 42, 30, 58, 40, they equally go down.
They equally go down, yeah, because you're changing the denominator by which is.
Right.
Any more discussion?
I do think it's important now, I mean, having cruise ships, say, almost 50%, or cruise ships under a third is a big delta. And I don't know how this data is gonna be used in the future, whether you're gonna draw upon it or not, but I think these survey results are gonna, could have ramifications down the road besides just, potentially, do we do this heavy enough for a big boat or not heavy enough for a big boat?
I really don't think so, because the question is, should the park accommodate docking or tie up? And for me, I think that if it is feasible for us to be able to build that in, we do so, because even if people don't want that today, we don't know what they might want 70 years from now, and we're building a park that's gonna be there for, 30, 50, 70 years, then we need to, if we can, build it to be able to accommodate the docking and the tie-up, and then if the community doesn't want it, we don't have to allow it, but if down the road it makes sense, that option exists because we factored into it and we planned for the future. And so I think regardless of this, I'm not using this data to determine whether or not this is something that we accommodate. What would determine that for me is the cost difference. How much more is it going to be in order for us to add the structural integrity that we need? And is that something that we can feasibly do now? If so, then okay, if it's only gonna be 10% difference, then I would say maybe, worth our while to do it. So I don't think that decisions need to be driven by, that's not what this survey is for, right?
Johnson, I hear you, but I think you're several meetings ahead of government. All right, any further discussion? All right, there's a motion on the table, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Three,
I'm gonna oppose it. In principle.
right. All opposed? 1, 2, 3. All right, is there another motion? someone wishes to, hey. Otherwise, I believe we table the discussion on the survey.
I might if we table a discussion for the survey, but I still think that the survey needs to be attached in the minutes in its entirety. However, we decide to split that up, that's the bar graphs up front and then the bar graph / comments on the back end, but I think that it's gonna be important for us to have this included in the minutes so that the public can have it as well.
Well, if we do not have affirmative approval of this survey, it can't go out of this committee.
I don't know that I would agree with that. I was actually thinking that this would be added into the packet and it wasn't, so that's why I'm advocating for it to be added into the minutes, but I don't know that we would need to have any affirmations regarding, or affirmative action regarding the data on this to say that it's available to the public. I don't think that's the case.
Well, it'd be part of the minutes of this meeting, but for this survey, it seems to me to go further, which the next step would be send it to council. Their information. I don't think we've got a vote to do that. Don't have a vote to do anything.
Well, I don't think we can reject the survey with a technical issue on number 11. The data's there, it's been collected. It's up to council when they consider the worthiness of it. We can put a note on there that we have questions about number 11, but that's why I don't think we need to vote to accept it. I think we may vote to accept the survey is completed and it goes into the data stream, but then we just leave it alone and focus on the other parts of the project. And when it comes back, I always treated this stuff as the icing on the cake for the 3 types of projects that we've asked engineers to bring us back. In other words, they bring back 3 scenarios that we ask them to do, then we take survey results, place that on top of it, and see how it fits. Right now, the voting thing is just a big question on cost. I know you know. I know you know. Stop kicking me on the table.
Well, I mean, I think we're in a tough place here. We've got a survey that has how many questions?
What's council's opinion here?
Oh, no, I think you're talking about legal counsel.
Oh, legal counsel. Okay, sorry. I got my counsel.
Well, I don't think I have any legal opinion about it. Could you not just put the information about question number 11 and have it say 1,700 something people took the whole survey, 1,200 something responded to this question out of, and this is how many people voted for each one of the choices. So people can come to their own conclusions if they want to. Maybe not put in percentages, but just say, this many took the whole thing, this many responded to this question. They want to take away from it that people that will want any votes, fine. If they want to take away that they just didn't make up their mind, fine too, but it gets out there to the public without us really having any influence over how it's presented, just giving the pure numbers.
I have no problem with giving pure numbers. But the only pure numbers that clear to me are the number of people had the survey and the number of people who checked the box. As soon as you begin to fiddle with that 1777 number, get in this dangerous territory where you change the vote, the way voting was done. The people who were voting were not told, you must check one box or you, in order to have your ballot count. They weren't told that. And if you talk about 1248 as a denominator, you're accomplishing that same thing. There are 2 numbers that are clear. One is 1777 people have the survey. The other is that for each vessel type, this many people voted that they would like to, see the waterfront park accommodate that kind of thing. I would have no problem with presenting that information.
Yeah, I think you can read this a lot of ways, and I understand your concern for the overall integrity of the survey. I think that's the issue you're having. 72% of the people that responded did respond to the voting question. But we just can't discern in the 5 vote types, what is other? Can't discern what that is. But there's 283 put out of the 72% of people who responded, put other.
Just a point of information to help us move along, when you have a tie vote, it's considered a fail. So the motion doesn't pass when it's a tie vote. So the Parliamentary rules of procedure. So we can continue discussing if you like, Mr. Chairman, but
I'm
your
going
motion
to
is
discuss.
failed.
I think we're done. I think it leaves us in neutral. I don't know what we do. With the survey, unless we want to have a motion that says something else.
Well, I think make a motion to put the survey into the record. Period.
Agreed. I didn't even realize we would need a motion to do that. I mean, there would have been no issue if the survey would have been put into the packet for review at the same time that we were discussing it.
I think the survey is legitimately a part of the minutes of this meeting, as is my memorandum.
Correct. I absolutely would agree with that. If that's what you wanted to submit in there as the minutes, I wouldn't see any issue with that. But I don't think that there is any reason to prevent this survey from going to public review before this meeting, after this meeting, or anything else. I don't think we have to have any kind of special motion to do that. We want to keep on discussing, this question or any other questions, we can do so, but I don't think there's anything additional that needs to be done to release it.
Well, let's see if there's a motion. Want to make a motion to release the survey as is?
I don't know if we have to.
They can be part of your meeting minutes, if you discuss them at length. But yeah, it would be proper to have it part of the meeting as well as your memorandum.
If you'd like to make a motion, we'll get this cleaner for you, Mr. Chairman.
I don't think we need a motion. Attached to the minutes.
There you go. One more.
And I just want to apologize because I think that there's absolutely room for improvement in this question. We could have done a much better job. And I'm just to say that here we are trying to trip over how this could have been more clear.
We all approved it, man, not just you.
No, it's just Wayne John. He's ready to take time.
I just want to double check one thing and make sure that I am attaching that full survey in its entirety with the comments to the minutes as they were received. Thank you.
This is a question. If I went to the city's website and asked for the minutes of this meeting, would I get the whole thing? Or would I get it?
You would get everything. You would get once they're approved, that's when they get uploaded to the agenda center for people to see once they are approved. So when these minutes are done and summarized, there's going to be several attachments to the end, which is the complete survey that was done. The document that you wished to have attached for question number 11 would be uploaded. And then also you requested the draft for the committee review be uploaded. So that would be another document that would be at the end of the minutes. So your minutes are going to be, roughly over 200 some pages.
But at the moment, the minutes will reflect there was a motion.
Yes, I've captured the motion that Mr. Russell made and Mr. Suter seconded the motion. And then after your discussion, there was a tie vote. So the motion failed. And then you are not making any other motions to be attaching the public comments and the survey results.
Is there a motion? Thank you. I'm trying to figure out where we are procedurally.
Next, I think next agenda item.
Is there a motion to approve the survey public release as is, with no changes?
Didn't we just decide we would need a motion?
Yeah, we just said.
It's attached minutes, but I think the minutes of this meeting ought to be clear as to who asked for what relief and what was.
Do you think that would keep, give you
Right.
separate them out?
Right now, according to procedural rules, there was a motion to approve the survey with a change to the methodology. That failed on a 3-3 vote. I would now like to see if there is a motion to approve the survey as is with no change. It's also a question level.
Well, I don't have a problem making a motion to accept them as we receive them. Because we're not changing the facts to them, right? This board is not here to bean pick the answers out there and decide what we like or don't like about it. That's my opinion. So I think it is factual data, comes in on record. That's where it sits. I'll make a motion to accept the survey results as submitted, period.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Are you voting in favor of that?
Yeah. That'll be it up.
I believe we have 4-2.
All opposed?
All right, so now we have the packet received. We can do further study on it and try to interpret it later, but,
All right, the next item on the discussion agenda is approval of draft report from council on issues regarding marina premises. Folks document here is a memorandum that provides a draft report to council that I distributed. 4 pages. Dated February 2nd. I didn't change the date for today. In this, I tried to pick up all of the points that we discussed at our last meeting with respect to the marina premises. But I'm certainly open to further thoughts. Any corrections or other ideas?
I guess my only thought is that I think this is written very well in regards to capturing our conversation. What was the intent with this? Is this to go to council in a public meeting?
Yes.
Okay, because there was some information that is, unless I'm recalling it wrong, but there was information in there that was from our recently discussed agreement with Safe Harbor. I think that's not for public discussion at this time. If there was any changes in here, that would be the only change that I think that we should probably
Are you
consider.
talking about the top of page 3?
Where was that? Yes.
Right, that turns out.
Big deal.
Right there.
Anything else? I felt like it was a good summary of what we discussed, what, some of the data is that's captured in the plan from 2002. And I would guess I further state that maybe after the council reviews this, some of this information could be beneficial for the downtown advisory board to set up as well.
What? Are they up and running now?
Not up and running yet, but we just established the board and then we'll interview candidates and
So if they were up and running, maybe they would want to review this and get their comments before we finalize it. But it sounds like they're not.
It'll be a while before they're ready that lines.
right. I think this gives council the framework to say, in addition to what we discussed as far as what their scope will be, some of it naturally falls within this summary and others that don't, we can cherry pick from here and say we'd like the board to take a look at these things as well.
So are there any other than Josh's two?
Yeah, on the paragraph number one, is after the waterfront restoration. The sentence starts off with this could have flanking or spill around effect. To the end of that particular paragraph. I didn't find that clear. I didn't understand where you were going with that. Whether you're talking about the marina, you're talking about the project. This wasn't.
I think that was talking about the different alternatives for the engineers. They talking about elevation. being up
Elevation and the spill
to
around.
3
Right, but the impact on the marina, the way it's written just wasn't striking
Right.
when I read it several times and just,
What you've got?
it didn't make sense.
And I think that would be a question for the engineers to determine, right? Because when they spoke to us about the elevations and the spillage, it was in reference to raising the elevation in such a way that you create a bowl with Bay Street and the middle of the park. And
Right.
it was never discussed that, you know, the marina could see some of that. So whether it was because they didn't take a look at it or whether or not it was because it wasn't a concern, I don't know. I think that question is something that the engineers would address in their.
Would it help you, Bill, if we struck the words at each end of the promenade? So would this say,
This could have a flanking effect at each end of the problem resulting.
take, delete at each end of the promenade? That is, increase levels of water barrier.
Right.
That are certain, certain conditions.
The water will spill around. Right. Impact the park, but then what you're talking about, impact, the impact on the marina, runoff into the marina. How does the marina get impacted?
Because the marina is gonna, at the moment, something sort of lower than the
Right.
elevated.
Okay. All right.
Water's gonna find the low spot.
Yeah. Okay,
So you're okay with it as it is?
yeah. All right, and the other question I had on page 3 at the bottom, talk about drawing carriage and golf cart. Were we gonna suggest where these ticketing amenities would be?
I wasn't gonna say, I was gonna say, the planners figured it out.
That's where I
That's
think
another plan.
perhaps your downtown advisory board could help.
Okay.
Go back to the place we were just a minute ago. Impact on, there's a sentence, so 2/3 of the way down, says, it is also possible that the entire waterfront park will be regraded as part of. That's. It probably should say it's also possible that portions or the entire waterfront park will be regraded, because it might just be portions.
And I kind of want to make sure Tracy gets all the opinions too.
Anybody else? Oh, the comments maybe. This draft. Work of this. In-house.
Scott, do we have another planned session? Because we really only had one. The first direction was to get to a point where we have a presentation to council, and I think the next step is the engineers and their three alternatives in a public charrette, so.
It is. That was gonna be my question when you got to the discussion phase of this motion, was to ask what your intent was. Do you want to present this to council as the chairman in a work session or a council meeting, or what's your preference? Do you have a recommendation, council?
And last time it was you presenting it to us in a work session, and I think that was good, so.
There's no action expected from council at the presentation, so.
That's just information.
Okay.
Information.
It's information, so
Yeah, it's information.
the work session would be,
We have a work session, our next work session is scheduled for February 24th. If that suits you, if not, we can do it another time.
Can I get back to you?
Yes, sir.
Next item on the discussion agenda is the status of plan to provide interim access to the day dock and propose enhancement of meeting house.
Both of those items have been submitted for the permitting process. Will take anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 months. I say that in jest, but it's actually pretty true. To get the permit back on those. We may have the access to the day dock construction documents prior to getting the permit back, and if we do, then we can go ahead and we can submit an RFP for the construction of that project.
what act, I mean, the last direction we have is try to make that happen by July 1st. That doesn't sound like that's,
We're still working hard toward that.
I understand that, but the gatekeeper, when we say 3 months to 6 months, or 3 weeks to 6 months,
Yeah,
what do we do to get us to the 3 weeks out of that conversation?
we continue to press the people who submitted the permit. There is a public comment period that has to be followed for each of these projects. And the public comment period, I think, has to be open for 30 days, if I recall correctly. So there's at least that much time for review that has to be allowed, and there has to be time for Bureau of Coastal Management to review the comments that were received and factor that into their decision.
My experience is things don't happen fast unless somebody pushes. I would hope that we find some way to push.
We're pushing.
Okay.
Next item on the discussion agenda is proposed interim changes to the Waterfront Park. Gonna take the lead here.
If it's related to the fencing and the, well, I know the council representative, Mr. Stewart, is here today. And we'll get.
Would you like to come join us?
I'd love to, thank you. I always like to come to meetings where in the first section they start talking about insanity and judgment. I know I'm gonna fit right in with the crowd then. Thank you for the opportunity. You guys are involved in a very complicated and long-term process. I'm just a simple guy trying to make a simple solution happen to folks who are dealing with problems downtown. Those folks are the merchants and the other folks that we deal with. And for those of you who haven't been in that business, I know a couple of you are in that business by marriage, if not anything else. If you ask a merchant how's business, you're gonna get an answer for the last hour, maybe 2 or 3, won't be the entire morning, and certainly won't be the day of the week. These are folks that are living on what I would describe as a real-time sort of scenario. If you would each take one of these, pass them around. I've got one for you. Thank you. I'm here because Freedom Arts District is prepared to give you a fence. And we'd like to give you a fence for a couple of reasons. But let me walk through some of those. I appreciate you being patient. I was listening to some of the steps you had, and I know there are issues with marina, but based on your conversation, all I know is there should be, all I know is there were drafts of a memo, but I don't know what the issues are, and I don't really need to. I don't know what the questions were in the survey, and I don't really need to, but I know we need to get some activity going on in the park, so that's why I'm here. So backup activities and discussion with our people we talk to, including our board, is at Waterfront Park would be the crown jewel, where people stroll alone, or go in groups, they go with the dogs. And that's where locals bring their guests and their friends and family. Festival there celebrate our water, our seafood, our love of the country, and our personal milestones. Travel writers and visitors marvel at Beaufort's beauty and authenticity. And just recently, a travel writer has said, I use stock photos and I don't want photos of that fence anywhere in my magazine. Then people invest their time and their treasure in businesses and buildings down there. Those folks are very concerned. And the Waterfront Park is an amenity. It's an amenity of the entire community. This is a beating heart of downtown. This is the beating heart of our community. It's not just a few blocks down there. It's an economic driver for the city, not just because of what happens within a few blocks. People that move here, people who come here, do business here. View that as part of the activities there is our interest in the region. All you have to do is talk to people at Vauxhall and people at Kalawasi about how they feel about Waterfront Park. We'll understand that. Waterfront Park is broken. The other day I was at the Convention and Visitor Bureau, happened to be out in the courtyard there, and a couple was standing there. And this guy said, he walked in and said, Beaufort is broken. He took his wife and his 2 children and said, let's go to Savannah. I don't know how much that's going. Pretty sure we will not be seeing that fellow back. I think he lives somewhere between here. I think he lives in Oakley, but I'm not sure where. So the cumulative impact of that is Waterfront Park is a treasure. Seaside Florida, Watercolor Florida, and Habersham are examples of places that invest heavily to create something similar to what we have at Waterfront Park. Chain link fence, Waterfront Park is unsightly, it looks unkempt, and it's damaging Beaufort's reputation every day. This damage is cumulative. Beaufort is broken, can become a chorus. Let's avoid that. I can assure you these people talk to their friends. The neighboring Port Royal, Mike, Josh, some of you others were here during those period of time. Ben, you may have been here. But for years, people were blocked from the waterfront by a fence in Port Royal. The fence was owned by the State Ports Authority. That fence has been removed. Restaurants are booming. Safe Harbor's planning major investments in Port Royal. Cruise ships that once docked in Beaufort now dock in Port Royal. Port Royal hired a consulting firm recently to help them attract businesses. I can assure you businesses on Bay Street are being recruited to move to Port Royal. Now Beaufort waterfront is behind the fence. It's not as attractive as one was in Port Royal. It's still a chain link fence. So let's build on Beaufort's success and let's not take success for granted. Let's fix the broken part. The timing for permanent repairs. As you can see in the progress you're making and the stuff that you're dealing with and the complexity of the issue, that we haven't even talked about what the permitting is going to entail when you get into doing all that stuff in the park. My estimate, based on the white hair and the years of experience that I've been dealing with this, and Mike, you're a Coast Guard vet, you may have a different feeling, because it's going to take 5 to 7 years before you finish the park. The last months of that or years of that are going to be incredibly unpleasant. If you look at the construction of the park that took place when they built it, you had cranes, you had barges, you had a lot of really nasty, ugly, dirty work going on there for some period of time. That's going to be the end of the repairs, and we need to do all we can to make sure we're healthy and happy between now and then. Whatever you think, the process is going to take time. There's going to be lots of steps, including the ever important step of finding the money, which I'm happy it's only a step up the short circuit, but I don't see that happening. I doubt too far. We're currently in the 8th month. That's how long the fence was put up, according to Beaufort Gazette. It was put up in June of last year. So what's your estimate? I'm happy it can take 2 years. I'll be astonished. That's what I'm saying about it. And so what we're going to approve, the improvement we're proposing now is to give you a fence. We're calling it a business-friendly fence because we want to refer to it as a BFF, which is kind of popular for some ages. And we're offering to pay for this for the businesses, citizens, visitors in the city of Beaufort. We're offering a temporary business-friendly fence. Allow transparency to see the water provide safety for people, communicate that the park is loved, it's important, and it's maintained. And it will communicate to the businesses and property owners that the city cares. Over here, you'll see against this wall a sample of the fence we propose. That's residential weight. Commercial weight would be slightly heavier, made for commercial purposes. We would have that run the length of the park, which we understand to be 1,100 feet, Chairman. And we propose to have 3 gates in there to place of your choosing. Why a gift? A gift only requires the city council to say yes. A gift eliminates delay, requires right specifications, generate bid requests, evaluate bids, select a vendor, and issue a contract. That process will take months. Meanwhile, your reputation and your business continue to be damaged. Gift eliminates delays. We can get an answer from the city council this week. This fence can be finished when spring starts on March 25 weeks of this week. No more Buford is broken. We'd like to see some signage change. I think you've all seen the signs down there, says no trespassing. The lion's gonna eat you and then you'll be prosecuted and the rest of that. We'd rather see something over there that's friendly and says something like, don't cross this fence, don't get us getting hurt, don't get a ticket. And do enjoy our marshes and rivers, do visit our shops and restaurants, and do come back often. And then at the bottom, enjoy Buford. We're glad you're here. I say this to you because when COVID came out, you and I both went into places that said, beware, don't get near people and the rest of that. We put a sign up in our business that thank you for coming. We're glad you're here. Be respectful of other people. Keep your distance. Cough into your elbow. Wash your hands often and come back and see us. I got letters from customers and clients telling us they were thrilled with the way that message was because first time they'd heard in a while that they were welcome anywhere. Let people feel welcome in the people's heart. So our business in the Freeman's Arts District is supporting artists, arts, and art galleries, many of which are located in this downtown area, many of which benefit people come from down. Reason we're doing this is because that fits in with our mission. We're not asking for anything, but we would like to have a couple of things we'll talk about in a minute. This all happens basically for free. We'd like to have 12 locations along the fence where we could put sculpture. I don't have 12 pieces of sculpture affected out. Nobody does. If the city doesn't like one, you ask us to take it out, we would take it out and move it. But I would propose to be selected by a committee with somebody from Buford Art Association, somebody from Main Street, Buford, a couple of folks from Freeman's Arts District, and one from the Historical Museum. Why we get it's a gift. Our mission wrote the Arts Gallery, Culture and Crafts that we talked about, and we have a Freeman School of Arts, Crafts and Culture. We're conducting classes modeled on the Aramont schools, Penland schools, and the John C. Calhoun schools. Those classes are open to local folks, but like many of our restaurants and shops, they will not be successful financially if they do not appeal to the people who are visiting here too. Some of my restaurants tell me 40 to 60% of their revenues come from this. It varies according to the time of year, but we're going to be offering multi-day immersive classes and things like cast net making, indigo tying, sweetgrass basket making, woodworking, and other things. We have to have a place for people to come and enjoy it. We'll be working with hotels and inns downtown for those students to stay there, as well as for our local people to take these classes. And then we need a friendly environment and a welcoming park for people to come and stay. Future possibilities. Mike, I know you will remember this, and I'm not sure who else was here that will remember Arts in the Park. We used to have concerts and other things in the park. We funded that years ago, and the reason we did, our business was down on the park at the time, was because a friend of mine, Shirley Parson, told me that the elementary students going to school at Laurel Bay had no idea Waterfront Park existed. They came to Walmart and they stopped at that location. I found that to be inappropriate and went to the Arts Council and said, we'd like to do something there. The Arts Council suggested, well, let's do a study and see if people come to a concert. And our response, being sort of entrepreneurs, was, let's don't do that. Let's have a concert and see if they come. If we do, we'll have another. And we did, and thank goodness we found Joni Cost, and she grew that program. It was delightful. Popcorn was $1, water was 25 cents. People came from all over the place. And at the end there, we'd have bus loads of people coming from nursing homes in flip-flops and terry cloth, but it was a highlight of many of those folks' weeks for us to do that. We'd like to bring that back. Murals, we're partnering with Mural Magic. We're looking at doing some other things. Right now, we're looking at bringing a flag and patriotic mural in here that will be flag eagle. It'll be 8 by 16 feet and be made of 650 tiles, each of which will be painted by local folks here in any one school. We'd like to see other murals available. There's funding available for murals in the Arts District. We'd like to make it interesting for people to come downtown. That's not part of this. That's why we're doing what we're doing here. And then street art. There are some opportunities. You guys have done some stuff. The city's done some stuff. We're looking to make some things happen in that regard, and we'd like to see that street art take place. That will take many forms if we do, none of which will happen here. But one of the reasons we want to have our name on this and make this successful is because it helps accelerate those plans. And there are other plans as well. Now, benches and swings. We think on the inside of the fence, you need to have some benches and some swings. We are told that folks are concerned about benches because they attract people that don't have homes. I think that's true because I've seen it in lots of places. Out here, just across the way, we have the pleasure of being across the street from the county jail, where all the folks that don't have any place to live in Bluffton and Hilton Head and other places get picked up, spend the night and get released the next day. And so they wander over here. So your benches may need to be designed for that. So we would work with you in the city in any way you chose to design it, but we'd like for you to recommend some places where you think benches and swings might fit. And then we would go out and find sponsors who would pay to put those in. Design these yours or the cities, locations yours in the city, we will have to make that happen. The staff, board, and the artists of the Freedom of the Arts District, thank you for this opportunity. I'm happy to answer any questions. And we hope you'll accept this gift and let's get on with this, because 4 months, 5 months of talking about this is going to put us in a whole different season. Those folks are trying to make it. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Can you reuse the current swings and benches, the swing benches that are on the other side of the fence now?
Why would we want to get involved in that if you don't know how many years it's going to be before you move? We have chosen to leave that alone. That's not part of our plan.
Okay.
Anyone else?
How many benches and swings?
How many would you like? I would say somewhere between 6 and 10, but that's not part of this proposal. This proposal, let's get this fence up by March 20th. We can study that other stuff at your leisure. Please don't do a survey on the number.
It'll be number 11.
Well, I think that, Mr. Chair, this committee did, push forward the idea that we needed to entertain the idea of dropping the fence. That's a huge public outcry to do that, to do something. It sounded like a great proposal, and exactly what you would hope to happen in the community. So I don't know how this board really has impact on this as a city council decision, and that's not in our typical preview of the commission. However, making a recommendation to support the idea to go to council, Coach Hayes would be appropriate, I think. Do we need a motion to do that, Mr. Chairman, or can we just nod and let's get this to the council?
I would appreciate a motion, so when I get there, I could say you talked about approving.
It's in the minutes.
I'm sure that won't be approved by the time we get to council. Or it would be. Is it May or June we're trying to get this done? Because I'm shooting for March.
Well, another big thing is ideally, this would have been in our meeting that was rescheduled, and so there would have been time to add it to the agenda for our regular session tomorrow. Be it that there's not time, I think the urgency still exists, and so my recommendation would be that council have a session really just for this, and it not have to wait until March, so it would be a special session, and as soon as we can get together and.
Let me, I checked with the South Carolina Press Association, he said for, get this out, city council doesn't have to meet. It's got to get accepted, because there's no liability on your part, and no responsibility on your part. Your manager is capable of, unless you choose to take that authority on the council.
No,
That's true with regard to the thresholds of what can be approved. I think this would fall under that. Okay, so I think that's true. The however part, and there's usually a however, there are some expectations in here on the part of Freedom Arts District, which rightly so, if you're going, like, usually those terms are spelled out in a memorandum of agreement.
Sure.
Memorandum of understanding, and those agreements do have to be approved by council. And so while the purchase itself I can accomplish, any type of agreement that goes with it, that would be your expectation, you would have to get approved by council.
It's a said earlier, and I probably didn't say very clearly. We're not expecting anything. You have a request, that's it. We're not planning to make that part of this. That's it. If you put the fence up and we don't, we'll still ask to put that art up there if you think it makes sense. Didn't want you to think we didn't care about it.
So here's one way to move forward. We already have one quote for fencing, which is pretty favorable. Nate is working on getting a couple other quotes, already here 3 quotes at this level of expenditures that we're talking about. We don't have to do an RFP process, wait for bids to come back and all that stuff. What we can do is if Friedman Arts District wants to fund it, they can make a donation to Pride of Place. And that can be earmarked through Pride of Place for installation of an aesthetically pleasing fence at Waterfront Park. And we can fast track it that way.
What kind of times have we think that would be?
Or
Installation, that's the only thing we care about.
depending on how quickly they get materials in.
My guy says he can have it and be ready to install it and have it finished by March 20.
I want to talk to your guy.
Well, I gotta have it.
So. I don't know if you have to have approval. This.
Well, I'm not going to order it until I do that. You can-
Yeah. No, I'm not saying, what I'm suggesting, is that, you would provide us with a quote, because our public works would be the ones that would make the purchase of the items to install. So it wouldn't be Freedom Arts District making the purchase. It would be a donation from Freedom Arts District.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, but I feel like we just added a month or 2 to the process.
Why?
Experience.
Yeah. Can you tell me today, go ahead and order them, have them put up, and you guys pay for them, we'll give you the money?
I've
You can.
got to get the additional quotes back from Nate in order to meet our procurement requirements.
If you're getting an offer from a public entity that's not connected to government, why do you have to continue with quoting?
That would be a gift to the city and then council would have to approve
Okay, so
But I think,
if they were installing it directly and the city was not. So,
and I don't know if this is within our purview, but certainly if what's put up down there looks horrible, it's gonna come back to us that, you know, it looks horrible, there's temporary fence down there. So is there gonna be any like 3D rendering of what it's gonna look like? Because,
It'll look like that.
but, yeah, I mean, just to be honest, the curtains and piping you put down at the arsenal look like hell.
No one wants to talk about it today, but I'd be happy to do it, but that's what they approved. We can talk about that. I'll go through that together. All right, here's what we did at the Arsenal since it's been brought up. We're going to have some classes there. We signed a lease to that effect. Those classes are going to be behind curtains and screens. Parties that are having weddings in there have been putting other ones up and would like to have something they can use differently. We're happy to change those, or we're happy to walk out of this room and say, because of those curtains, you don't want to do this fence. Because whatever we choose to do is sort of like this. 8 months, we've been sitting here with this. Those people are hurt down there. Some of those people last week, for the first time in the history of their businesses, did not have a single customer. We can wait around and we can talk about stuff. We can point fingers and do things. But those people are the ones who put their time and their treasure into their business. Those are the people that feel like they've been told no on the fence. They've had a bad situation with construction. They're being told no and what they want to do with the social district. And so all of us are sitting here, and it's not going to affect my life, my daughter's life, my grandchildren's life, or anything else, what happens here. But those people are being impacted, and they don't feel like they're being heard.
Is the quote that we have received, is it less than $100,000?
It's a little under 20,000.
20,000, okay, so,
Ours is closer to 35.
so either way it goes, it would be based for our procurements, the city solicits a minimum of 2 quotes by telephone or email for purchases between 15 or 50,000. So if we have 1 quote already, then we would just need 1 back from.
Yeah, if Mr. Stewart can provide me with that quote, we can use that.
Then we
quote.
could use that as one, and then all we need is 1 other quote, and we can move forward.
So what are we being asked?
I'm asking you to accept the gift, recommend to the council that they accept the gift.
I think it's one thing to ask, you know, for city council, the fencing proposal, but if with that goes the other arrangements. involved.
There is none of that other stuff. I try to make that clear, but I didn't want somebody to say you should have mentioned it and then fail to mention it, so I'm trying to be candid.
So the request. Time to, yes.
Not at all.
if there's no expectation other than donating to the cost of putting the fence down there, that can be donated to private place and we can proceed pretty quickly.
But then council wouldn't need to approve it, council wouldn't need to approve the memorandum because there is none, so really there would be no reason for why it would be delayed, not at all.
So you think you'll have it by March 20?
If your guys say they can get up by March 20th, I don't see why that would be an issue at all.
Well,
Right.
it depends on where you go with it. You're asking them to take the cash, you ain't saying provide the service.
Right. They're not providing the service, they're donating the cash.
Yeah, but then you're at the mercy of the contractor you're dealing with. We don't even know the product yet, and to board members' point, I mean, I see that fence, I don't have a problem with it personally, somebody else might. But if the other one's a short chain link fence for the cheap price, that's not gonna pass.
That's the same type of.
Same fence, okay.
I'm just trying to get this done very quickly for these people. It's a temporary fence. It's not like we're.
I mean, for clarity, I think it don't hurt to make a motion. This board has limited powers anyways. It's just a recommendation. I'll make a motion right now that we accept Mr. Stewart's offer to have his offer presented to council.
Just to be clear, it's agreed with our district.
I'm clear.
Well, I guess it doesn't need to be presented to council though, so
It-
this board
it
doesn't need
does,
to
I
make a
guess.
motion to have it presented to council.
No, I guess the board, if the board wanted to make a motion, they could just make a motion to recommend that the donation that is offered by the Freedom Arts District is accepted for the purpose of installing an aesthetically pleasing fence at the Waterfront Park.
And this is what you'd be considering also.
Same type of fence. It's modeled after the cemetery fencing that you see along Boundary Street.
Well, absent Arts District, I mean, that's a great gift the city citizens is getting. Who's paying for it if we don't accept that offer as a city?
Then the city would find funds to pay for it.
Okay. Last meeting, we said we didn't have money to do any of that stuff. Now we're finding money to do that stuff.
Depending on the need of what's going on, yes, we can probably find the money to do it.
Okay, that's the rub I have, is because we have known since the beginning of this that these were problems. Yet we bureaucratically keep going through these long steps to get us to where we're going. Let's just have some real clarity here. A fence needs to change. Who does it? I don't care. But if that's the fence that can get up, then my direction to anybody's elected would be to get it done and stop talking about it.
Respectfully, Mr. Sutton, we have not been talking about this since we installed the chain.
We've been meeting
So I
for
resent that.
8 months. We've been meeting for 8 months in council. For the first 6 of them, we're only meeting one time a month over a most critical part of a problem in our city. I think this is a time urgent issue. And if council needed to make an approval, then a special meeting should be called and you should recommend that to them to execute these type of problems. Or we'll be talking about it for the next 6 months. Period.
Are you finished?
I'm finished.
I think the council created this body to be an advisory body, and if we don't, something that looks like advice would be falling down, so I think probably entertain a motion to recommend the council consider the gift been proposed by the FEMA fund.
And the only problem I have with that is I don't think it needs to go to council. I think that would slow it down even further. If this could be approved at city manager level and we already have one bid on the table, if we need to maintain our procurement process, I would expedite getting another bid and I would move forward with Scott's judgment on approving this or taking a gift and going through pride of place or however, but I would bypass council because it would just slow it down.
I think if it's a gift without strings attached and it's that, which is what you've already been looking at, then I think give it.
Yeah, I would make a motion to provide approval for the city manager to move forward on accepting this gift.
Second.
We can't. Well, we don't have the.
We're just providing, we're just advising that,
We're
just recommending.
we're just recommending that you do that, we're not saying anything past this, so it was seconded.
Is there a motion?
It was a
I made
motion,
it.
a second.
Any second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you, and I'll get back with you on this, Curtis.
So, am I explained to my wife what I voted to approve taking down the chain link fence that she liked?
Well, I would suggest that you tell her that those merchants that she likes and those restaurants that she likes and those galleries that she likes and those other things she likes don't exist without having a healthy waterfront park. And that she'll like this even better because she'll have better places to enjoy it. That's what I told my wife, and she doesn't like to film this off. Well, maybe she told me. Thank you.
This brings us to, next item, the committee comments. I maybe commented about policy. Used to at this point on various items on the agenda, so we'll move on to public comment. Anyone, please?
Go ahead.
I got a couple of thoughts and concerns. Just as a note, just to let you know about Safe Harbor and some things going on in Charleston. Safe Harbor, I'll read this. Safe Harbor has just purchased a bar and restaurant in Charleston, South Carolina, in the marina downtown, and city marina. The bar and restaurant have been in the same family for over 60 years. The purchase caused quite a disturbance in the old guard Charlestonians. Can't blame the family for selling the restaurant and bar when Safe Harbor's got such deep pockets. The old bar was called Salty Mike's, and the restaurant was called the Variety Store, one of my favorite spots. They have breakfast in Charleston. I hope Safe Harbor and Beaufort does not get the same ideas of creating competition in downtown Beaufort. What will Dockside Restaurant be safe if Safe Harbor were to purchase the Ladies Island Marina? This is the thought. A concern I got, and this is from the same meeting of last time, is now I'll read this. I have the same questions, concerns concerning fuel tanks as mentioned during the previous committee meeting. I have questions such as the size of the fuel tanks, location, underground, above ground, removing the existing tanks, abandoning in place the existing tanks, cost of fuel tanks, how new fuel tanks be incorporated into the new port design, with the fuel tank replacement expense, with the fuel tank replacement expense, how many years will it take the city of Beaufort to break even and cover the cost of these fuel tanks? With the growing use of the Henry C. Chambers Waterfront Park and increasing crowds at festivals and events, public safety is in this area of the park is in the balance on what happens with these fuel tanks. The Waterfront Advisory Committee should have at least a conversation concerning these fuel tanks. Another item. One item I feel strongly about is the acquisition of the old dentist office at the corner of Bay and Charles Street. This is a 0.17, 7,600 square feet. Size property that is crucial in completing the ultimate park design for the city of Beaufort. It is located in what should be the main entrance to the Henry C. Chambers Waterfront Park. It has been 50 years on the city's to-do list. Even if nothing can be done about this property at this time, the property still needs to be on the radar of the public and radar of the city government. That's all I got.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Kanani Robinson. I'm part owner of Hemingway's downtown. My business is located downtown on the waterfront in one of Beaufort's oldest commercial buildings. It's been open since 1993. I personally worked downtown for the past 18 years. During that time, I've seen both the best of what this area can be and the steady challenges it now faces. For the last 8 months, the waterfront has been closed to the public. That closure doesn't just affect scenery, it affects the economic heartbeat of downtown Beaufort. Waterfront is not separate from downtown business. It's the reason many people come downtown in the first place. When visitors and locals can't walk along the water, They often choose not to come downtown at all. That means fewer customers, fewer shifts for my employees, and increasing strain on all the small businesses that rely on consistent foot traffic. Right now, many of us feel like downtown is in limbo. It's especially concerning to me that a private businessman is now offering to rebuild or improve the fence simply to make the area look presentable while we wait for the waterfront to reopen. While that generosity is appreciated, it raises an important question. Why are downtown businesses depending on private citizens to step in instead of seeing visible action or temporary solutions from city leadership? We understand that large repairs and public projects take time, but communication, temporary improvements, and clear support for downtown businesses should not take 8 months. Downtown Beaufort is not just a collection of buildings, it's part of the city's identity, economy, and community life. The businesses downtown employ local residents, support tourism, and help keep Bay Street vibrant and welcoming. We're asking for 3 things: clear communication about the waterfront timeline, temporary solutions to make the area feel open and inviting, and meaningful support for the businesses carrying the weight of this closure. We want to be partners in keeping downtown strong, but right now we need to see movement. I also want to bring up the fact that I am downtown every single day, and not one occasion have I seen a single council member downtown offering their presence and support to fully understand the adverse effects these closures and seeming lack of care that we have been experiencing has impacted on all of us. And it's easy for, like, I sat here for that first hour watching this survey question. You could come into my bar at any moment and talk to half the locals that come in there and talk about how this fence is affecting them, or the Bay Street being closed, having to go all the way around just to find somewhere to park, which is a whole other issue on its own. And I think a lot of the business owners downtown are like, they're like stuck in a place of like trying to keep their employees going and then having slower business. So that's like really becoming an issue. Like, I've worked downtown almost 20 years, so I know it comes in waves, like spring's about to hit, then summer, then winter, and it comes in waves, and that's fine. But like, being closed on Bay Street, having the waterfront closed is a huge issue. So like, his offer just now was an amazing, generous gift, and I highly believe in the fact that we should accept our blessings. If you have the power for our city manager to say, yes, that's fine, let's do it, you have someone willing to do it, the 10 steps in between that you're making the bureaucracy of it, that doesn't need to happen. I strongly disagree with, and I really think that I think his proposal is amazing and such a gift. I also work another full-time job as a tattoo artist, and so anything with art, to me, bringing that downtown would be such a blessing. And I think it's a great opportunity that you guys should really look into. If it takes, the business owners coming together, I can go walk around and do a survey myself. If you'd like a door-to-door approach, I can do that. But I strongly suggest you consider pushing this forward. March 20th sounds amazing to me. That's when the tour buses start coming down and spring hits, and that's when it affects everybody downtown. So that's all I'd like to say. Thank you for listening.
As a result of, yes, sir.
I'd just like to speak about the survey question 11. So my name is Jared Madison. Thank you. 2618 Holmes Drive, Beaufort, 29902. So the question itself is skewed towards, so what I interpret it is that we're gonna have some sort of shift out there anyway. Which one would you prefer? So it's like, all right, here's the questions. Would you like to die by fire, drowning, or a car accident? And you pick one of those. It's not one saying, but what about not dying at all? So I think you missed a vast group of people who might say, well, I just don't want any of these, so they do skip it. So that's the skew point of it. Now, with that being said, it seems more, I guess, efficient and rational to just say, let's just submit this question once more. And I don't know if that's an option, but submit this one question and have the answers the same way. Have an answer that says, an option that says, I don't want any cruise ships at all. And to go what Kanani said, it's like that took an hour on one question. So someone that's working downtown too, is at the waterfront, and I see these things day to day. I talk to business owners day to day. At Saltis, we're a lot slower because before the road closure happened, people, downtown residents were saying, well, I used to go downtown, but the parking issue has made me stop going down. Now, it got closed in the time where business was at a downturn anyway. So we got the slow season, we got the park closing, and now we have the roadway closing. So when people have bills, and I know like single moms that depend on work, we're having multiple cuts each day. Like people argue about who's gonna go home each and every day. So we feel like, and the community downtown feels like no one cares because it does take an hour for one question gets answered. Or when somebody's just offering a gift to say like, this is alleviation, it's like having a broken leg and just sitting in the emergency room and people walk past you, like, can you just help us do something? Because I haven't talked to anyone that feels like our governing body cares about them. And I feel the strain of it all the time and extremely frustrating to see us sit here for an hour based on one question. It's like, okay, you made a mistake. I've been the king of making mistakes. That's fine, but where do we go from there? And it should, to me, and this is just my personal perspective, and I don't know others' perspectives of it, but it just seems like it takes so long for action to happen. Meanwhile, everyone's suffering, and meanwhile, everyone's mad, and they're frustrated, and we're mad at each other because we don't know what's happening, and it seems like no one cares about that. And I just want you all to keep that in mind. It just, everyone downtown, it's the same. Like I came up before with a parking solution for employee parking. And you know what most people said to me when I'm doing all this work is, I don't know why you're bothering with it because no one cares about us up there. And these are the people being governed. And so that's something to keep in mind. Thank you. And I appreciate each and your attention and time.
Thank you for your.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, what's the status on the design? Where are we at? Or when are we gonna see some preliminary sketches?
We're still pushing the engineering team to get sketches sometime in the first quarter of this year.
The first quarter of this year,
That's what we're pushing.
so that could be March. April. And they've had access to this since over
Access to what?
designing.
It's the same team that did the engineering study, so they've had access to it for over a year.
Yeah. And does our contract with them have a scheduling included in that, a time frame? Are there any clauses in there that move them along? I'm very familiar with designers. They'll design to infinity unless somebody puts the.
I don't have the contract in front of me, but I'd be glad to provide it this entire.
Because I think we need to speed this up, as much the same as what everyone is saying here, but let's see what's going on. How close are we to seeing these 3 recommendations or proposed designs? And are they what we want to look at? Maybe that we don't like what those 3 designs look like. I mean, we haven't seen anything from them for months, and I think we're due that.
You're correct.
Just like the.
I have a question too for town city manager. I've had people been in my ear about the results of the engineering study that was the basis for shutting the park down. Was there a second opinion done? Sam, I mean, I don't need details because it's not my question, but I've been asked to ask it. Was there a second opinion looked for in those results outside of that engineering group, or were we taking just their information?
We're taking just their information, but that's a consortium of different engineering companies that make up that group. And outside of those engineering companies, unless you went way outside the region, I don't know who else you would ask without contracting with them specifically to do their own study. I don't know that they would take someone else's data and make it their range.
And they ask them. We ask them.
In light of the comments we received from our guests today, do you have any further thing to discuss? I hope that we can work to assure the downtown business community that we're serious about this. We understand what you're. And we're moving as fast as we can, I think today. Take a big step forward toward getting the fence replaced. This is a big, big problem. For me. And I don't think downtown business owners want the city to rush into a decision here, which we'll all later regret. But meantime, I'm sure, and I'm talking to the city manager anytime, I am sure the city will do whatever it can. Make life easier for you folks. A number of initiatives were taken over the Christmas shopping season. I'm sure that the suggestion box is open for the city manager. Suggestion you guys have. Him.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, a lot of those things that happen for Christmas that were incentives didn't impact the businesses in a positive way. And that's just, again, someone that's down there 6 days a week. And I talked to from jewelry store owners to people from the point, I'm there most of the time. So I see it. We were on vacation, and when we came back, it was so many people that were just simply upset about it. It was some days that they offered free parking, but or free parking in the marina, for instance, right? Why wouldn't it just be free parking for the whole thing? That whole time? Because if people finding a parking spot or wanting to pay for parking or thinking parking's too congested is an issue, well, hey, we've made a bigger problem and that's our fault. We're working through the problem and we're doing the best that we can. But while we're working, here's something for you as well. Here's free parking. They didn't see that. And so that was another argument. And I think the point of emphasis that should be looked at is that there's nobody from a downtown merchant that's on this board. And a lot of those are boards, right? And those are people that are getting impacted the most. Like Mr. Stewart was stating, it's that's the heartbeat of our community. So if they're not being represented or have a voice, then their voice goes unheard. And that's their frustration. And I hear that on a daily basis. Again, I'm there 5 to 6 days a week and I hear that.
We do have 2 members of this committee who are married to downtown business. So we don't have their spouses on this committee. We certainly hear their issues.
It's Mr. Chairman, one point, I think, to be fair to the city manager, at the last meeting, I think we all determined that in the interim, before we get the engineer's report, we need to do something with the fence down there. And I think we requested the city manager go out, get quotes, and come back to us. And I'm assuming he was going to do that at this meeting. So I think his response to what we asked him to do. I think the fact that the fence, Mr. Stewart is generously donating is the same one we've been looking at. I think it's come together, and I just think the gift makes things a lot quicker for us.
Right. We've not complete the public portion of this meeting unless anything further.
I'll only ask you one question, and that's in regards to Jared's comment about redoing the question, and it's something that I was thinking about as well, because I don't want to rob anybody of the opportunity to show no support for any of those options simply because we failed to frame the question in an appropriate way. So while I think that we made the right decision in regards to not manipulating the data and taking what was given to us, but I would support if it was feasible for us to send out that one question again and frame it in such a way that it was, there was either a no support option or, redo the wording of the question itself.
Yes, no, or no opinion.
Right. I don't, it's not going to slow us down at all, because this does not determine when we see the design alternatives. So there's not going to be, this isn't going to delay anything that we do or anything that needs to be done. It would just be additional work to draft the question, do add another survey monkey, determine how long we're going to leave that out there. Probably not gonna get, you know, much results. We didn't get much results for this one. I felt like a lot of time went into this survey and you get hardly any responses, and whether that's because the sentiment is, it doesn't matter, don't spend your time doing it because it's not gonna make a difference anyway, or whether it's just because, you know, people don't see the survey and they don't know the option exists. I don't know, but just for the sake of ensuring that those who answered or skipped the question because they didn't want to support it were actually, you know, heard, and they had an opportunity to weigh in, maybe pushing it out there again in a different light would provide them that chance. So if that was something that the board was in favor of, I would support it.
This would take the form of a single question with an explanatory note attached to it that would
Correct.
out over Survey Monkey.
Correct.
We also,
the logistics of that, Scott?
Same as before.
Is there a way to go in there and do like a reply all to the people that replied to the Survey Monkey to push it back to them?
I don't think so, is there actually?
No, you weren't required to put in an email. It was anonymous, so I don't have the respondents' emails to reach back out to them.
I mainly bring that up to you guys because you guys voted, you made the motion and voted the other way, and so, you know, just trying to find a middle ground there and find a way to take corrective action.
there's gonna be other opportunities to gather information as this thing unfolds.
Sure.
Right? There's been no public charrettes. There's been no information back from engineers yet. So I think you can have a chance to bite the apple maybe even differently after we start get into that mode, when we actually start seeing information coming back. And so maybe it's not so important to do the survey right this second to get that data. Maybe we can collect it another way during the public outreach. So,
I mean, I've been an advocate that the question was flawed. Having said that, I think when they write the history of the 21st century, that question's not going to be in it. And I think to go out there with a whole thing on one question with a whole different subset of people, and I'm sure we'll get basically 20% of who actually did the survey because they want to do the whole thing. I just don't know the value of it.
Wouldn't they represent the same demographic though? That's the key point, is the demographic that it's serving the question to. So it would still equate to the same feelings, essentially.
Pushed out on Survey Monkey, then be in California and respond.
It's not locally based and
As I understand it, we cannot limit geographically or.
like, so the survey was based on, when you pushed the survey out about downtown, it was for people all over the US.
So the very first question on there was asking where, if you live downtown, if you work downtown, if you just visit downtown. So we tried to differentiate those respondents to find out who was responding. And I think, I don't have it in front of me, but I think over 70% of the respondents lived in the city. So 56%, and then what was the live?
35% outside the city because of regular, so which is basically probably in the general area.
Did you take a survey, Jerry?
No, I didn't.
Well, my has, I'm always for, getting to the truth. My concern is confusion.
Well, back to my statement in regards to the wording of the question, in my mind, if we could feasibly accommodate, then we would, regardless of what the community today would support it, because we're building something that's gonna be there for a long time.
We could end up with an answer to this single question survey, which is quite different one way or the other from either of these interpretations. If it existed, then we get 3 different answers.
Right.
It could be polarized and you get 2,500 responses.
I think Mike, you make a good point. We're gonna have a shoot. We're gonna have meetings, public meetings, to get a feel for what and based on the engineering, which way people want to look at, what kind of votes they'll accept or not accept on That's the waterfront.
We could have paper surveys. We could have paper surveys at the shred that we would ask people to fill out, that we could ask that question.
And we can lead the discussion that way, because really, a moderator or moderators in an event like that needs to understand what exactly they're trying to get out of the presentation and out of the reception, so that has to be top of your mind, is like, the engineers, when they come back with 3 concepts, we're assuming they're gonna give us 3. One of them was, if you remember, was leave the park just like it is and put it back like it was, right? Well, that means the underwater relieving platform. That means 6 foot of dirt. That means the ballards and chains thing. Now, that's the, and when the cost number comes back with that, you know, we may all have to sit down. But the reality is, it helps you understand the question better, and then the public gets a chance to understand why you may not go that way. You know, because if it's 10 years, because we're waiting on the money to get the relieving platform, and it's 4 years, and we can get a part and add a relieving platform later, I think I know which way the public would sway.
Right. I think at this point we have concluded the public reading. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
Moving this pursuant to Title 30, Chapter 4, Section 17A2 of the South Carolina Civil Law for discussing discussions of negotiations, incident to propose contractual arrangement, and receive legal advice relating to matters covered by attorney-client privilege. We go into executive session.
Second.